before we get into the show, make sure to do a couple things. First of all, click the subscribe button down below and make sure to turn on your notifications, please, in order to get updated content that I start to put out. I do put out weekly videos, so hopefully you enjoy those. The second thing you can do is to make sure to be empathetic and understanding for all of my guests that come on this show, but otherwise, enjoy the show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panashevitz, and I am really pleased to introduce this wonderful guest who is on my show today. She's a content creator and streamer for Misfits Gaming. Please let me introduce Amalie Reisvaag, maybe better known as Proxyfox, and I messed up your name. God bless my life. Having a last name like Panashevitz, you think that I could actually pronounce last names, but really I got my last name and then that's it, and I will never be able to pronounce anyone else's ever again, I think. But welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so this should be kind of fun. This is something different. There's not a ton out there with like interviews on you, and this is something that I kind of started up to kind of get to know people who are involved in like the esports scene, including content creation, streaming, behind the scenes. I've had a lot of really cool guests on the show so far, and just to kind of get to know the people that actually make up esports and what they're like and kind of how they came through here. And I was really excited to get you on the show, and there's kind of a lot of stuff that we're gonna kind of cover, and I'm kind of excited about it because you come from a country that I have not had. I actually don't think I've had any guests from Norway so far. Lots of people from Germany. I think I've had two people from some other countries, not Norway. I think I had one from Sweden. I know, some other country, right? But Norway is definitely. I think you might be the first. So that's kind of cool. So what is Norway like? Like if you were to describe Norway to people who are maybe looking to go there or to visit, how would you describe Norway?
Okay, so it's very beautiful. First of all, I love the nature in Norway. Every single city and every single part of Norway is just straight up beautiful, and it's really fucking expensive. So if you would ever, want to go there, then I would suggest saving up a lot of money because everything is always in Norway is expensive, and our big cities are not big cities. So our country is pretty small, but it's nice.
Mm-hmm. So what makes it so expensive? Is it because of tourism, or is it just because I understand why some place like LA is very expensive because of how big it is and the overpopulation kind of associated with it, and then other places get more expensive because of tourism. I obviously come from a very small town that is almost nothing. There are no people there, and so nothing is very expensive. But what makes Norway kind of expensive?
Well, it's kind of like the entire Scandinavia. It's just the salary people get is just higher. Okay. So everything else is also higher. So it kind of evens out. So Scandinavian people going on vacation is everything is free basically, or everything is super, super cheap. But Scandinavia is really, really expensive. I think it's just because of currencies and stuff.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's gonna lead me into some other questions. Kind of like you as a person, you've kind of already went into a little bit about you as a person. So you're a content creator and you're a streamer, and you just finished a fairly long stream just a little bit ago, which I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me about that. But that kind of brings up into your life growing up, because you were looking at doing media and content. I have to ask you, was esports something you ever thought there's no other option, this is what I'm going to do with my life, I'm going to be involved in some aspect with video gaming?
Well, it has kind of always been a hobby of mine, even since I was a little kid, just playing on my Nintendo and whatever. But but I don't know, I never really thought that this is what I was going to do, but at some point I think I just became so invested in it that there was no way I was going to do anything else.
Okay. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I feel kind of like I was going to college because I have a degree in psychology. And when I was going to college, I was oh yeah, I definitely want to be involved in esports in some aspect. And this is pretty much what I'm going to do no matter what. I'm going to figure a way to make it work to some degree. So I can understand that. So you were born in Norway, but you had a very interesting kind of childhood growing up. And a lot of parts of it were kind of rough. that you had talked about. And so I kind of want to dig into what was it like for you growing up? So I think like even starting right off, one of the things was is that you were actually born a month early, which anyone who knows anything about like development stuff like that can be very dangerous, and it can a lot of times be like an issue for children. So what was the reason that you were born a month early?
To be fair, I'm not really sure. I just know that I was born with something called a cleft lip, and that made me unique in an unfortunately bad way when I was younger. Because if you stand out in any way as a kid, it's like really easy to get picked on. And I guess just like that's kind of how it started, by people just like pointing out stuff about my appearance, and then like even when that kind of wasn't an issue anymore, then they just found something else because I was already like labeled as someone who was not so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can, we're going to talk about the bullying and stuff, because I think that a lot of people go through that in different, not specifically always about looks, but I know that growing up, I got bullied a lot, because I was a little bit different. And I remember it being very kind of traumatic for me. And I know that other people have kind of went through similar things. And I think that it's good, someone that they look up to who's involved in the scene and who also went through some of the stuff and how you like persevered through it to where you are now, I think is a really powerful thing that I'd like to start to get into. Before we get into that, though, one of the things is that you were living with your actually aunt and uncle. And that was something that ended up happening like fairly right away. You were very young when you were living them. Why did you have to end up living with your aunt and uncle? Is it because it was just so expensive in Norway?
I mean, my parents got me when they were like 19, so they were still like in school. So it was just like my aunt and uncle. They just had like a basement that was kind of like an apartment that we could like live in. So it was just I don't know, money saving, and also like I didn't mind living with my aunt and uncle because they also had kids that were my age. So.
Do you ever think about like back on it now? Because you're obviously a little bit older than 22. I'm not gonna than 19. And can you imagine having a kid at like the age of 19? Like looking back now, what you were like at 19? Can you imagine what that would have been like?
No, I mean I can't even imagine it now because I don't know, like it doesn't fit into my lifestyle as well. But then again, like I wasn't really planned either, according to my parents. So. Like it's not like something that was planned on their side either. So
yeah. I mean, I'm 27 and I can't imagine having a child now. And 30 is approaching, and I'm like 15 years away from ever wanting children, at the very least. So I can kind of understand that. So you lived with your aunt and uncle. And as you were living with them, you talk about your cousins and them being kind of like a really important part of your life. And it sounds like they kind of stuck up for you a lot growing up. But what was it like? Because your aunt and uncle obviously divorced, or they separated. Did that change the dynamic with like your cousins, or how did that affect your life?
No, I mean it really didn't affect anyone at all, except for that like they ended up moving out of the house, and we kept on living there like in the basement but with someone else living upstairs until like my mom and dad also separated, and then I just ended up moving together with my mom and my grandma.
So do you know why your parents separated?
I mean, I think they just kind of like grew apart because they were so young when they got together that I think they like didn't really know themselves or each other's, and I think they just kind of like grew separate ways. But like the way they split was just like not harsh or anything, so it was really nice for me that they like stayed friends, and it's really easy for me that like my families are still friends with like, or my mom's family is still friends with my dad's family and stuff, and it was never kind of like hard for me. It was just that my mom was living one place and my dad was living the other place.
Okay. I mean, that's really awesome. My parents actually split when I was right around 6, and I remember it being something that was like very actually traumatic for me, just because they did fight, and the fighting itself is actually what caused all the problems. So the fact that your parents were able to get along without fighting is pretty amazing. and pretty awesome actually. Like when you kind of look at it now. Now you mentioned that you were close with them. How did that work when your parents did split? Because they did get along. Was it something that you're still seeing both parents, or was it where you were mostly staying with your mom? What was that dynamic like for you?
Well, I was mostly staying with my mom just because of like school reasons, because my dad was kind of living in another city, like still nearby, but like still too far away for me to like drive to school every day. So I ended up staying with my mom, but then every second weekend I would like go with my dad, and I don't really think it was that much of an issue for me.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I never really had like much family issues, I would say.
Yeah. I understand you didn't have an issue with it. Like that's really good that you didn't have an issue with the kind of dynamic. Growing up through school though, was it ever hard to like explain things to other people? Did you have to ever explain like the divorce situation? Because I remember having to like explain like why my dad wasn't around or anything like that, and I was just very awkward in like school and stuff like that. Though it's getting to be fairly common now.
Well, I think it was like maybe not super common, but it wasn't uncommon either. So like people didn't ask because most people didn't know and honestly didn't care. And yeah, I mean, it like no one would ever ask. So.
Yeah. So school was something for you that was fairly difficult. It sounds like from like all the stories that you've told. Was it always difficult? Like, or did it start out easy and then get kind of more difficult later on?
No, it was definitely always difficult. Like I really enjoyed school in the way of like going there and learning, but the social aspect of it was for me just really hard because maybe at first I would have a friend and then like we wouldn't be friends anymore, and then I try to get new friends, and then but I never really like fit in anywhere, and it was really hard when you're like a kid and there's just everyone is like in these groups, and then you're kind of just outside of all the groups, and I basically ended up being like super good friends with all my teachers instead. So like my social life would be basically speaking to my teachers. But
so how big of a school did you go to? Like,
I think like in elementary school, maybe it was like 900 kids in total from like 1 to 7th grade.
Okay, so that's a fairly small school then. I say.
I mean,
okay,
not for me.
For me, that is actually it's probably about the same size school that I went to when I moved to high school. But when I was in elementary school, my school was very much smaller than that. It was like 20 or 30 kids a class. But I hear about like other people who go to really, really big schools, and now my perspective has kind of like changed, where you hear about there being like 500 kids in one class, and I'm like, oh my God, that's insane.
I think we would have like 3 classes with like a little less than 30.
Okay.
But each, so.
But it was small enough that you probably knew almost everyone inside your class.
Yeah, inside my class, and like for sure.
Yeah.
Like
okay.
I try to find anyone that would be my friend, but it was hard.
Okay. So you mentioned that you didn't really fit in any groups. Did you do any sort of extracurricular activities? Because I know that I also did not fit in with a lot of people. But the one thing that I did get a lot, like I was really into music, and so I would join band, and obviously joining band is something that also you get picked on for. But there was a couple people in there who I found friends with. Did you ever do any sort of extracurricular activities when you were growing up through school?
Oh yeah, I was doing like everything. So it started out with me playing football. And then I didn't get to play when there was matches because it was like me and it was maybe like 30 other boys. And then like all the boys would play and I would just sit on the bench, and I was like, okay, fuck this. And then I just moved on to another activity. And then I did some drama classes, I did gymnastics, I did swimming, I did handball, I did horse riding. I did kind of like everything, but I ended up quitting like most of it just because of the social aspect. Like it just felt really awkward for me to like not have a like any sort of relationship to my teammates, like I would just, for example, play handball with them, and I would throw them the ball and they would throw it back. And like during the breaks, I would just sit by myself while they're like all talking to each other. And it just like, I didn't have the confidence to just go up and talk to them. And none of them like had any interest in just coming up and talking to me, So it was just really awkward for me. Like, even though I did all of these things for maybe like 1 year, like I played handball for 1 year, I did gymnastics for like 3 years, football for 1 year and stuff. But after 1 year, I would just say give up.
Okay. So did you find any of these that you really enjoyed, or was it what made you want to join these to begin with?
Well, I was a really active kid when I was younger. So I really just enjoyed doing sports and stuff. Like, I wasn't necessarily the best in any of them, but I just enjoyed being active. But then it was just kind of like the social part of it that made me quit, I guess.
Okay. Looking back at it now, kind of looking back at like the social aspect that kind of was there, how much of it do you think it was like you just not having the confidence to reach out, or how much was it other people like just being mean? Because kids are they're fucking mean sometimes.
I don't think it was them necessarily being mean, because I don't think that like they meant to be mean to me, because a lot of the people that I was in class with or sports with or anything, like they weren't mean to me. Like, they didn't say mean things. That was just like a few exceptions that did. But I think it was just kind of the culture, especially in Scandinavia, where it's like it's not really like an including culture. Like, the people that you're going to meet in your life is the people that you go to school with and that you work with. Or like maybe if like a friend introduces you to a friend. But like if you see someone on the street or on the bus or at a like anywhere, like it's not normal to like have a conversation with anyone that you don't know, kind of. Okay. So I guess they just didn't really know me, and I didn't know anyone, so no one can introduce me. So it was just like an evil circle that just spiraled, kind of.
That you bring up that cultural aspect, and it's funny because when I was working with like the LA Gladiators, the Overwatch team, we had a couple of people who were from Finland, and they actually talked about a very similar thing. Like, listen, like it's very odd when you're willing to talk to someone who you don't know is on the side of the street. In Finland, that is highly it would be looked down upon, kind of, because it's just so weird. And I tend to be a very social type of person who likes to reach out and talk to people. Sometimes I could understand people being a little bit nervous about that, just to do my job field, and people have said that. But it is a very different type of culture to be able to deal with that, and that sounds very isolating. It actually sounds like it could be very, very, very bad, because it forces you into a position where you're almost isolated by necessity of your culture.
Yes, so I think definitely like everywhere in Scandinavia, maybe not so much Denmark, but at least like Norway, Sweden, Finland have just these cultures where it's like really not normal to, like, even if I would have the confidence to go talk to like a group of people without me having like kind of like a reason to talk to them, like if I don't have a question to ask them or anything, then it would be like really, really strange for me to be like, hey guys, how you doing? I'm Proxy, They would be like, why the fuck are you talking to us, kind of.
Yeah, and I could see that being the case. It brings in an interesting dynamic. Because you obviously, this kind of changed later on when you got more confidence, I'm assuming, and you started to be involved with esports, because esports, you kind of have to talk and associate with people if you want to get in. It to some degree, it requires some level of social, but you're also safer because you're online, and then you transition in. But looking at growing up, you kind of talked about having like one really, really close friend, and it was upsetting when she moved. Was that really one of the only friends that you can you had growing up, or was there other ones that just weren't as big of friends?
No, I mean, it started like my little friend circle started with me like when I moved in with my mom and my grandma, and we moved into an apartment, and in the upstairs apartment there was like a boy who was maybe like 5 or 6 years older than me, but my mom told him to like introduce me to like the neighborhood kids, and I did, but I didn't like I got along with one of them, but he was like 1 year older than me, and we didn't really like hang out in school because I was still like a loser, so he didn't want to hang out with me. And I don't know, there was like these few other kids, but I didn't get along with any of them because like some of them were kind of mean, like mean in what kids would be mean to, like they would just like force me to like go prank someone when I really didn't want to, and then I would get the blame, and then they would like kind of sit and laugh, and they were just kind of mean, and I didn't like it so much. But then I ended up finding this one girl who I was really, really good friends with for quite some time, and she kind of like made school bearable for me, I guess. But then when she moved away, I was just kind of like back to zero, and at least at that point, I think it was like in 4th or 5th grade. And then, of course, everyone will have like a friend group, and I just kind of didn't fit in anywhere. So I just kind of like just try to join the sports activities again, like in the breaks, just like playing football and stuff, just to like hang out with someone or try to do something. And I don't know, like later on that also led to some friendships, but it took like 3-4 years before it became like an actual friendship and not just like me hanging out with someone in the break, kind of. So but then that also like stopped.
Yeah. So you're going through school, and was school ever an issue for you? Because it sounded like you had fairly good grades, but you mentioned like especially making more friends with teachers. Was school something that you ever had an issue with? Like as far as like grade wise?
No. I mean, grade wise, I was doing like pretty well, like really well. And
pretty well. Don't want to brag or anything.
And like that was really never an issue for me because I was a pretty fast learner. So I don't know. I guess school was like okay for me because I didn't really put in that much effort into like the actual school part, which is like a lot of people hate school because of like the actual learning part. But for me, like since I'm a fast learner, it was just kind of like I was just kind of cruising and just like chilling. But then again, like I just wish that I had that social part because then I think school would have been so fun. But for me, it was like, I guess I don't mind going to school today,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate. I know that when I was going through school, I was looking at graduating early because I didn't want to be there because I didn't get along with anyone there. So I was like, how do I try to graduate as early as possible? Because if I graduate, I don't have to see any of these people anymore, which is a very interesting thought process to kind of go through. The way that the school system is set up in Norway, is it set up like some of the other countries that I've got to talk about, where when you get to like high school, you get the choice of like 3 different levels of school, and it kind of increases, like there's like the prestigious like level, the middle level, and then the like lower tier level. Do you have a level system of like your schooling as you get older?
We actually have a very interesting school system. So we have elementary school and middle school. And then we have high school where we choose between, I think it's like 8 different directions in what you want to study. So, for example, in my case, I chose media and communications, but you can also choose like, I don't know, like electoral or working in the oil industry or like just working with like math or, like anything. Like you basically just like choose the direction of like what your interests are and what you are interested in working with. But personally, I feel it was like really fucking early to like choose what I want to work with when I'm like 15 or 16 or something. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta pick like the right education for what I want to work with, I guess.
When I was 18, I couldn't do that. I can't imagine doing that. I went to college in the first 3 years of college. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. This is a mess. So I can't imagine like being 15 trying to come up with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my case it was like a fairly easy choice. Even though I almost went into like becoming an electrician, I like last minute just like changed my mind to just doing media communications because I don't know, I really love being creative. I love like writing and photography and like videography and music and anything. So wait, did my PC just turn off?
You're still there. I can still hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but both my screens just went black.
Did they fall asleep?
Oh yeah, actually they did.
I'm not cutting that, just an FYI.
Yeah, so I guess I was really lucky because I chose media and communication, and then usually it's 3 year studies, and then after that, you can like go into like university or college or whatever. But I had normal 2 years, and then my last year, I went um, like a different study called media design, which is more like it's only media. So I had like 35 hours a week of like only media and like 1 or 2 hours of like
So
physical
when so
activity.
when you say only media, what kind of stuff were you covering in there? Because that's a really cool kind of system. At least sounds like.
Um, well, I think we had 8 hours per week to do something like our own project. So we could choose like whatever we wanted. So, for example, the first half year, I decided to make like an esport magazine, and then the second half year, I decided to learn how to do 3D, just like 3D modeling. And then for the rest of the time, it was, for example, like media history, and it was just like different tasks. For example, like for 2 months we had photography, and for 2 months we had radio, for 2 months we had journalism, and like it would just like change topics, and then we would kind of like go through a lot of different like media types and like kind of figure out what we like better.
Yeah. So high school, it seems to be like a flip of the coin for different people. Some people say that their life got better in high school. Other people say that it got worse depending on kind of like where they were going. What was high school like for you? Was it something that got better for you, or is it something that got worse?
Mm, well, it couldn't really be more shitty than elementary and middle school, especially middle school. So it couldn't really be more shitty. And I think it was more fun for me because it was something that I was really interested in
Yeah.
compared to like doing a lot of general studies. I could actually like focus on media. So in that aspect, it was pretty fun. And my class was like not too bad, and there wasn't like any bullying, I guess. So that was like better, but it was still like the social aspect of it, which was me being kind of insecure and not having the confidence to get to know anyone, because I thought that after middle school and everything was kind of shit, I decided to go to a school that was in another city just so that no one from like my previous school would go there. So I kind of like chose a school that was pretty far away, just so like I wouldn't see anyone, and it was kind of like a fresh start because no one knows that I'm like a loser, kind of.
Yeah.
So this will be just like a fresh start, and I get there, and then I realize that I'm like really fucking shy and awkward. So it didn't really get any better because I still couldn't just like walk up and introduce myself because I didn't have the confidence to do so. So the story just kind of like, I thought it would change, but it kind of just continued. But at least I managed to get like one or two like pretty like closer friends. Not that we would like hang out much outside of school or ever, because I would just play video games then. But like at least I had someone to like sit with during lunch, which felt like pretty good compared to like previous years.
So when you moved to this other school, was that hard on like your family? Was it something that it wasn't a big deal? Because you obviously had to move into the school in order to go there, but it was a different city. So what was that aspect like?
I mean, it was fine for like my family because like I still live with my family. I just like traveled for like 1.5 hour, I think it took me to get there, and then 1.5 hour back.
Okay.
So, but I mean, honestly, I just wanted to go to like a good school, and the school that I went to was like really, really, really good. And it's a creative school, so it only has like the creative lines there, so you can like only study like media, music, dance, like this kind of stuff. So like it was kind of like school for people with like creative interests, which like really suited me. Except for that, I never really got to like know that many people there, I guess. But I mean, it was a nice school at least.
I mean, that's one aspect. So you mentioned being having an issue with like the social aspect, and so that kind of leads me to the question of like there's like normally big events in the United States, like we have like prom, which is a fairly big deal. Did you ever get to experience some of those more social aspect type functions that might have happened?
I mean, we had prom in middle school that everyone like kind of had to go to, but
Ours is not middle
that,
school.
I mean, that was just kind of shitty. And then we had prom in high school as well, but I mean, I just chose not to go there. So
Okay.
because like, who am I supposed to go with? And I'm not going there alone, and it's just awkward. Like,
well, that's what I was asking. Is did you ever did you miss out on some of that stuff because you didn't know anyone?
I mean, yeah, sure, but then again, like prom in Norway, it's not like American prom, you know. It's just like, it's just kind of whatever.
We just
Like,
dance and eat food. So.
It's not. I mean, it's not so fun, and it's not like so overhyped, and it's not like asking people to prom is like a really big deal, you know. It's like you go with your friends, or you can like go with your like girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. Like, it's not really a big deal in Norway, for sure.
Was there anything that you really like looking back at like high school and growing up? Is there anything that really sticks out as like I'm really happy I got to experience this?
Well, I'm really happy I went to the school I did or study what I did, but like any specific event that I'm really glad happened, like I can't really think of anything except for, I mean, honestly, I think I started playing a lot of video games because it was social for me, you know, like I'm interacting with people and I'm social, even though it's over internet or whatever. Like I didn't care. It's still social, at least for me. And in that way, it gained me like a lot of online friends, and some of them even became like real life friends. So I met like a few people that lived in like the same area as me, kind of. So like I would have a few people to like play video games with, and like occasionally have like LAN parties or something with, which was something that I'm really glad happened.
That's good. That's good. No, that kind of leads me to the next set of questions. You mentioned that video games were kind of like something that you started to pick up more and more in your life growing up. And I imagine it started to happen more throughout school when things in school kind of sucked and you were like, screw this, I'm going to go play videos, because that's what I did. I won't lie. Like, It was amazing. I liked my online friends significantly more than anyone in school. Shout out to Ultima Online. So, but kind of like looking at that, did that aspect of your life, did it get to be where, like, to the point where you're like, listen, I just want to stay, I'm going to finish school, I'm going to get home, and I'm just going to play video games? Like, is that to the point that it got to? Like, what was it like? What was that release like for you, that escape that you got to have?
Yeah, I mean, that was how my life has been since I was 12. Like, I just wanted to get done with school and then just like rush home and then play video games until I had to go to bed. And preferably after I had to go to bed too, like I didn't care. And also, like, the first best friend that I had throughout elementary school, like she also liked video games. But at that point, it wasn't like World of Warcraft or anything. It was more like The Sims or whatever. Yeah. But I just remember like we would go to each other's houses and we would just like hang out at the PC, you know. But I don't know. I think like having that online life, where like especially where I was like really popular, was just kind of like almost addicting, and also like, but it also made me feel kind of better about myself, because they told me that I weren't a loser and that I was a cool person and that I felt like really important, you know. So I guess in also a way it kind of like carried me through like my, like on a day-to-day basis, you know, like when I had shitty days, I could just go online and it was just a different life kind of.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is that something that, because I can understand that, like craving that like level of attention from like the people around you, has that ever caused you issues that you're always looking from attention from other people? to like validate yourself almost. Because like you mentioned, your online friends validate, but then in school people were mean and they were not nice, and so I could see craving that validation from other people. Is that something that you've struggled with over the years?
I mean, maybe not so much, but I think that's also like one of the reasons I kind of got into streaming, because my online friends told me that it was like really fun to play with me, and they were like, "Oh, people would love to watch your stream. Like, you're really funny and stuff." And I think like when I first started my stream, like it really boosted my confidence, but like not into like I don't know, like being higher on myself or something.
Yeah.
Like it was not like to an obnoxious point. It was just like boosting my confidence from like 0 to like 50%, to like a normal level. And when I started streaming, I was first year of high school. And then later on, like people started figuring out that I was streaming. I don't know, people talk. And then like at some point, I actually started getting people who would come up to me at school and be like, "Hey, I watched your stream last night. It was pretty cool. Like, you're pretty cool." And like that way I was like, wait, someone is talking to me in real life at school? Like, is this real? And I don't know, I like everything just like started from when I was streaming, and they finally had that like excuse to come talk to me, right? Like that's all they needed. Like, sure, like they're not really mean, but it's just like the cultural thing.
Yeah.
But now I actually had that excuse. And then I was like, hey, pretty cool. And I was like, what the fuck? Everyone doesn't hate me? What's this?
That makes like that is kind of wonderful that was your outlook to kind of like it improved your life like significantly. It sounds like it's a very important part of your life. And I think I want to ask you this: streaming back then, is it different than streaming now? Because I obviously know a lot of people who stream, and I could, honest to God, I could never do it. I could never become a streamer. I can't sit there for that many hours and be entertaining all the time. I mean, I can't play video games just in general. Like, I'd rather sit down and talk to someone for hours than do that. Mm-hmm. Is streaming the same now as it was when you were a kid?
Well, I think now that I'm older and I'm doing it as a job, it has kind of like turned more into a job, but I still like see it the same way as I did before. Like, I never like stream to like show off that I'm entertaining or something, because honestly, like I'm not, I don't know, Tyler 1 or something. Like, I'm not going out of my way to like scream and like jump up and down and like visualize all these emotions, I'm just kind of like doing it for the social part. Like, I'm playing video games, which is something I love, and I'm talking to people. So it's just like me talking to my community, to like really my friends, and that's still that's still what I'm doing. Like, it didn't change, except for like now it's a job, but I don't do it for the money. I'm just lucky that I'm able to do it, kind of.
Yeah. So growing up, both of your parents had split up when you were younger, and then did they both get remarried when you were older?
Yes.
What was it like having step parents for you? Because my parents both actually remarried, but then they also got divorced again. But they were remarried. I know, right? You're like, oh my God, this dude is crazy. Yep, triple divorce. Feels good, man.
Yeah. So, well, when they got remarried and when they started having like kids, like new kids,
yeah.
I was kind of like old enough to like not really have that influence me that much. I kind of just had like accepted that my parents, like they divorced and they found someone else, and now they want like a new family. But I guess that also made me like, I wouldn't say that it made me feel excluded, but I think it was just that I was already like, I don't know, like to myself, like not necessarily isolated, but I was just, I didn't talk much to like my family or anyone. Like, I was just like online. And honestly, I don't think that like when they remarried and had kids and stuff, that it really like changed much, because I was already like grown enough to be my own person, kind of.
That makes sense. growing up, you obviously led into becoming a popular streamer and working for Misfits. Did you ever work other jobs that kind of made you appreciate what you have now? So like growing up for me, worked in restaurants, I did instructing, I did a couple other jobs and all of these were really shitty jobs that I really did. Did you ever have like some of those jobs that really made you appreciate what you're doing now?
Well, my first like real job was like working at a thrift shop, which was like really shitty because like a lot of the customers that go there are like people who don't want to pay full price for like anything. So they're like the kind of people who like come and like take off the price tag and they were like, how much does this cost? Just to like hope that I will say something lower than what it's worth. And I don't know. Like it was a really shitty job, but at least it was like a job. And then I worked at like some festivals just like as a volunteer to get to go there for free and like some stuff like that. But I don't know, like I started streaming when I was 16 and then yeah, I guess when I moved to Berlin I had like a full-time job, but boy, that was really exhausting because I moved to Berlin and I would have a job where I would work from like 10 to 6. So I would like get up at like 8:30 in the morning or something, and then I would go and I work from 10 to 6. And then I would stream when I get home, so I get 7. So I would just stream from like 7 until like 2 or something. And then I would just go to bed and then I would do like this like every single day, like no exceptions, just every single day. And like I didn't even take time to like make food for myself or eat breakfast or anything. I don't know, like ate like shit, like ate kebabs or McDonald's or whatever. And at some point I just got like really, really, really exhausted because I was doing this for like 1.5 years, like straight. And that was really exhausting. I really wish I didn't do that.
What were you doing for a job there? What was your normal not 9 to 5 but 10 to 6? What was your 10 to 6 job?
I was doing influencer marketing for a company named Dojo Madness, or I was working specifically with an app called LolSumo. So it's like a League of Legends coaching app, and I was working with like streamers and YouTubers to like promote our app. So I was basically like the middle person.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what does that imply? So like we hear about, and this is a good thing, is like you look at like marketing at like league teams, you hear about marketing all the time, but I don't think a lot of people actually know what someone who is in marketing actually does. Like what does like the day to day kind of like look like? What kind of things do people in marketing tend to do?
Okay, well for me, since it was like very specific influencer marketing, it was basically just reaching out. Like first of all, you need to like scout for influencers. So say we want to have a campaign like in Germany, like I just go like on YouTube and Twitch and I look at like who's like streaming and making videos in German or whatever, like where their audience is. And then I reach out to them or their agency and ask if they're interested in working with us, just like kind of like brief them on what we do. And then if they're interested, then like I set up all the contracts and figure out like a date that works. And then I figure out the date that works for like our company. And then we kind of like, for example, have like a sale that day if we want to push it to something specific or I don't know, just anything. And then afterwards is a lot of like analyzing. So analyzing how well they like sell units, like how much they sell, like for people to buy like premium subscriptions, and also like how many views it got, and like how many of the people that viewed the video downloaded, and then like compare it to like the others, and then you like check if like we paid them too much, too little, blah blah, blah, like all of this like analyzing, and then on to the next one. Except for that, you don't really have time to like wait until you're done. You just have to do like 10 people at the same time, basically, every month. But it was interesting to work with other influencers And I never want to do it again, for sure.
You're done with that life. So looking at like that marketing aspect, did you utilize those same skills in order to kind of like grow your own stream? Did you utilize any of those skills in order to improve things about your own content or your own brand? Were those things that you found to be useful to learn for that?
Well, definitely a lot of stuff that I did at my job like became useful for me, especially when it comes to like analyzing my own content, like how I can improve and whatever. But also like I also know like cheap ways to like grow a lot, but I don't want to like do anything to like fuck up like what my content is, you know.
Yeah.
Like I could, for example, just like play with someone, like some of my friends that are like more famous than me or something, or I could just, I don't know, dress more interesting, like more appealing to guys, or I don't know, I could just stop playing League and I can just do like IRL streams, just chatting streams or yoga streams or working out streams or anything, you know, like I know how I can like grow a lot more, but I also don't want my content to be that. And I don't want to be known for being like someone else's friend, like, oh, who's this? Like, oh, no, it's the girl who played with this guy or this girl, right? So it's kind of just like a slow and steady growth, but it's a growth at least. And I'm really happy with my community, and I'm really happy to be able to do this full time. So.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with that. So you started to get you finished high school, and you decided to make the leap towards Berlin. You're like, I'm gonna move here because I want to be involved in esports, and the only way to really get involved is to be located someplace that is poppin'. It's very popular with esports, obviously at the time. It still is. But you moved to Berlin and you start kind of like working in there, and you start to make connections into the esports world. And one of the things you had said is that you started to do panels and to talk about things that you were like passionate about, things that you wanted to see improved. Which kind of brings me to my next question. What types of things in esports were you talking about, and what types of things now do you think that should be talked about?
Well, I did some panels in Norway actually about just what kids are doing online, kind of. It was like Unsafer Internet Day. So it was basically like what parents think that their kids do versus like what their kids actually do. Like a lot of parents are like scared of them, I don't know, like joining some Nazi organization or whatever. Like that's what they're scared of. But like in reality, they should be scared of like, I don't know, like in Norway, it's really popular to have like Facebook groups where like that's basically like roast me kind of thing. And you join it when you're like 12.
Yeah.
And then they have like really strict moderations, like no like adults can join this group. And then it's just like they post a picture of themselves and be like, rate me or something. And then everyone would be like, oh, you fucking fat whale, you know? And it's just like really shitting on these like 12-year-olds. And then, yeah, basically just like talking about that to like some parents. And then I did some panels about girls in esports. I've done that a few times. Basically just like talking about like people think that the reason there isn't that many girls in esports like in the professional scene is because of the toxicity in the games and that they're being scared away from competitive play. But in my opinion, it's honestly not about any of that. But yeah, that's just like a way like long discussion.
I mean, we have time, and so like this is like the real you, right? Like we're gonna look, and I've actually had this conversation with a couple people, and so far everyone who I've had on there has pretty much said that they don't know if that is the reason why. And I think the problem is you can't really. It's very hard to prove a lot of these things that we talk about because a lot of them are opinion based on like our experience, personal experience that people have. So they're very anecdotal. In my opinion, I don't know. Like when I look at like the esports scene, the professional scene and then the normal standardized play that you see are basically two different games. They're very much separated, and I think the problem is that people put them together way too often, like they're the same thing. And in my experience, I've not met very many pros who like would be like against a woman playing. In fact, in the Overwatch League, we actually do have a female pro player who is on a team, and so but everyone really likes that player a lot. As far as like the pro aspect, I don't see that being an issue. I do think that games are toxic. I don't know how much more specifically they're toxic to females versus males, and I don't know how you could ever prove that, and I don't know because I'm obviously never experienced it. But what do you think the reason is? What is your opinion on?
Okay, first of all, just to like comment on the toxicity thing, is that I super agree that like a lot of games have a really toxic community, but I don't think it's like targeted specifically towards like women or anything. I just think that like they're gonna flame you like regardless of who you are because they don't know. And if they do know, for example, like in my case, like if I have someone on my enemy team or on the same team and they like decide to flame me, then sure, they will like throw out like stuff that's like personal targeted towards me. Like, oh, fucking girl, you fucking suck because you're a girl kind of thing. But I think that like, if they didn't know who I was, they would say the same thing. But like, you fucking suck because you're a fucking virgin loser or something. Like they would just say anything. Like it doesn't matter. But yeah, I think a lot of girls are not so much in a competitive scene because first of all, it's really hard to take the first step, both as being the person who steps into the scene, but also for like the organization to take that risk because they will never know like how their players are going to react and how like everyone else is going to react and how the team atmosphere is going to be. And that's not just like I'm giving them an excuse, but that's basically their excuse that they have been giving to me when I have like kind of asked because I was interested in becoming a professional player. Obviously not good enough, but I was like, okay, maybe I'll just like put my streaming career aside and try to go pro, like while this game is still popping and while I still have the motivation to do so. And then I kind of just like, I was too scared of doing it because I kind of like was scared that I would get rejected if I ever got to the point where I was good enough because I was a girl. So then I just kind of like got that confirmed by several organizations who was like, no, we will probably not get you on our team because that would make a bad team atmosphere. And even more than one organization even told me that they would have maybe gotten me if I were a boy or if I were ugly. So, but they wouldn't do it now because then I would just be a distraction, like regardless of how good I was apparently. So I just kind of dropped that.
Yeah. So those conversations, how long ago were those?
Like 2-3 years old.
Okay. So, especially if you're looking at like legal, I'm assuming it would have been more League of Legends than anything else. Like, obviously, the league scene has, with franchising stuff, like there's definitely new teams, but it's kind of like that. When I hear that, that is definitely a level of sexism.
But I mean, like,
whether or not it's justified.
No. I mean, I've experienced so much sexism that I was like kind of okay with it. And I never used it against them because I was like, okay, well, I guess like I get it, kind of like, sure, you don't want to risk like your top tier team of like putting a girl on there, and then like all of the players will suddenly be unable to focus or be nervous or whatever. But like that's not an excuse because that's not how it is in like real jobs. But then again, like these people that are professional players are like 17, you know, so. I don't know, I guess I was kind of like okay with it, but I also think that it has changed like since then. And I also think that like there will be a lot of competitive female players, or maybe not a lot, but there will be more competitive female players in the upcoming years. I just think that there was like this stigma around playing a lot of video games as a girl, like like when I was younger, then it was fine for guys to have it as a hobby, and it would be like you can sit and play all day and like people wouldn't care. It's just like a guy thing. But if you did it as a girl, then that was kind of just really not normal and not really accepted in many ways, like socially accepted, and also like by families and stuff. I mean, luckily in my case, my family weren't super strict with it, so.
So, kind of looking at that, you made a successful streaming career. At what point because you were working a job and streaming, at what point are you like, okay, I'm done with this 10 to 6 job, I'm gonna just do streaming full time?
Well, that basically just happened because I quit my job because they offered me to do freelance for them instead of working full time, and I just told them that's not good enough for me because I need stable income every month. So I quit my job.
Okay.
Or declined their offer, rather. And then when I announced this on my social media that I was no longer in this job and I was looking for something to do, I just was lucky enough to get contacted by Misfits, and they just asked me if I wanted to stream for them. And they would offer me something that I could pay my rent with, like on a monthly basis. So I just accepted it.
That makes sense.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
that dreams.
I was kind of too scared. Yeah, I was too scared to just quit my job and just like jump out of it and just be like dependent on donations and subscribers and stuff, because I don't want to. I feel kind of like bad asking people for money. Like, it's really kind of everyone who chooses to subscribe and to donate and whatever, but I don't want to be dependent on that kind of.
And I imagine you probably don't like asking. Like some streamers will go out there and be like, oh, like we're gonna do this when we hit like this many subscribers, or like
Yeah.
they really promote like subscribing to them, and it doesn't sound like that's something that you really particularly like doing.
No, I mean, worst case, I would like, I don't know. Sometimes I would like, for example, if I'm having like drunk streams, like if someone like gives me $10, I'll like take a shot or something. But I would never like do like a lot of stuff that's like subscriber exclusive, and so I don't really have that many like benefits of becoming a subscriber. It's just like, if you like my content and you want to support it, then feel free to subscribe, and here are like 20 emotes that you can use or something. But I would never like I don't know, I felt really bad for like, or I feel really bad for like trying to get people to give me money, kind of. So now I just have like volunteer options, kind of.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things, especially with people involved in esports, I always kind of talk about is like relationships, because first of all, there was a ton of stigma, because most of the time I have pro players or coaches on the show, and there was a ton of stigma about like being in relationships, and you heard things like famous people like, oh my god, if you're in a relationship, you're screwing over your car, which by the way, I don't agree with at all. It's just about a healthy balance, so I'm going to clarify that now. If you don't have balance in your life for like a lot of things, then it tends to just be messed up. But one of the things you had kind of mentioned inside of your Draw My Life is that you went through periods where you had a lot of rocky relationships. Was any of that due to like your own self-confidence, and what was that like?
Yeah, for sure. I just think I had a lot of issues myself, and I went for people who were alike me. So I went for people who had like a lot of issues themselves. And that was maybe not the smartest thing for me to do, because it just like messed both of us up, kind of. And so, yeah, I kind of had a lot of shitty relationships just because I was just young and I didn't want to be alone. And I found someone who didn't want to be alone either, but we both like needed someone who was stronger than ourselves, and that other person just weren't, kind of.
And so how did that change for you? How did you move beyond being looking for like codependent relationships, or looking beyond being inside of those unhealthy relationships and needing like almost like the validation of other people?
Yeah, no, I think it was just like me, first of all, just like taking the time to get over like everything that had happened, like in relationships and in school, and like feeling shitty about myself, and just and then yeah, just kind of moving on and becoming happier with myself, and then look for like, or not really look for, but just get into like a healthier relationship by being mm, more mentally healthy myself, I guess.
Yeah. That's good. That's normally what I recommend people do, is that if you can't care for yourself to some degree, it's very hard to be in any sort of relationship. And I've been through a lot of shitty relationships, so I can speak on that too. If you had to give any sort of recommendations for people who like get into bad relationships or are having issues, what would you recommend to them?
Well, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like when you start out, like for example, for my relationship, it's like when I first got into my relationship, it was kind of I was kind of maybe not so ready for it because I was still like working on myself a lot, but like I still wasn't dependent on anyone. Like I was still very like mm, yep, independent.
There we go.
Like I was still very independent. Like I didn't need someone kind of. But like while I was still working on my things, like my boyfriend kind of just helped me like work on myself, like while he was there like supporting me, but it's not like I was depending on him. And that's like two very different things. And I think a lot of relationships, like the best tip I can get is to kind of just do a lot of self-reflection, because a lot of issues in a relationship is just like people kind of being like so obsessed that the other person is wrong, kind of, instead of being like we're two people against one issue. And like the issues can also be because of something that I'm doing. And I think a lot of people are just like skipping that part, like, oh, there's a problem, like, but I'm not doing anything wrong, so it must be the other person.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So kind of looking at being a content creator and streamer, what has it been like to be a representative of the Misfits brand, right? To be a streamer underneath them. What has your experience been like in that situation so far? Is it something that you like, that you would like to keep doing? Is it something that like where are your plans for the future with this entirety of being like a brand, part of a brand?
Well, I really, 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 really love Misfits. Like they have taken so good care of me, and their staff and everything is just super amazing. And they're also really including, which is something I didn't feel like because I were at like some other teams before and like been, I don't know, like partnered with like some sponsors and stuff. And like honestly, like there's only two people that have like really included me, and that has been MSI. Like MSI was really good at like including their partners in a lot of stuff, and not only like kind of like giving me attention all the time with like different sponsored products, but like reaching out and bringing me together with other partners to like events and do like stuff with all of us and have everyone do like streaming together and stuff. And with Misfits, it's also like they like ask me if I want to come along to like photo shoots with like the players, and they want to do content with me, you know, like also do like short interviews and like anything compared to what I was before. For example, when I was on a previous team before, like they didn't really include me in anything that their players were doing, and we were like kind of held separate.
Okay.
And but I guess that was also like a different time.
Yeah. So, what do you want for when you look at yourself in the future? Where do you see yourself being in 5 years? What is it that you want to be doing in like 5 years?
Well, I still want to do content producing, and I don't see myself quitting streaming anytime soon, as long as there's like interest for people to watch it. And I think maybe like if I wouldn't do streaming, then I would still do like content creation like other ways. But I also find like social media like really, really fun to just deal with, like Twitter and Instagram and all of this, to probably just like become more focused on like the social media aspect of my brand, I guess. And then yeah, I would still love to be like creative, so maybe work with Misfits, but more like not as a streamer, but like as a content producer in like other ways, like either help with like videography or do like photography with them, or like maybe I don't know, like do something else. But I would like to be in esports and I would like it to be creative, but maybe like even like a host of something, or I don't know, like anything really.
So I have one last question for you, and I appreciate you taking so much time to kind of like talk to me and go through all of this stuff. So this is arguably the hardest question, depending on who you ask, but it is something I ask everyone. You've had the experience of being on my show. It's a little bit different than almost everything that is normally out there. There are not very many shows like mine, which I pride myself on that because it's so unique. That doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's unique. But having experience being on the show and kind of what it is, if you had to pick any one person to be on the show, the only requirement is they need to be involved in esports in some way. Who would you pick?
I think maybe Shocks.
Shocks.
I know it's a long shot, but she's a pretty good friend, and I know that she has worked like so hard to be where she is, and I think like her story is just really cool, and I think she's like an incredible person.
I think that is a very good person to recommend on this show. So it's someone who I hope one day that I get to have on this show, because I think it would be a lot of fun to have her on this show. That's all the questions that I have for you for today. Do you have any shout-outs or anything? I don't normally do shout-outs, but I let you have them if you want them.
Shout out to my family and my boyfriend for, being there, and all of my online friends. It's too many to mention at this point, but I love all of my online friends and couldn't have done it without them either.
Well, thank you so much. This has been Deep Dives in the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panishevitz, and until next time, I hope everyone has a wonderful day.